Hey, what's up? It's Primetime Football, and today we're just going to be talking about some possible playoff situations that could arise. It's always fun to talk about the playoffs during the season, beginning of the season, off season, all that stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about some of that stuff right now. First, I think we all know who the likely teams that everybody knows or not knows, but is very confident they're going to make the playoffs. So maybe we can talk about just Alabama and Ohio State right now. So what are the chances Alabama doesn't make the playoffs or Ohio State doesn't make the playoffs? Is if there's any at all?
Okay, so I don't know who would miss the playoff. Would a one-loss Notre Dame who loses to Clemson make the playoff, or would a one-loss Alabama that loses to Florida make the playoff? I still feel like Alabama would get the edge, but that'd be very close. That'd be a close call.
Okay.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
So if you had a one-loss Alabama who loses to Florida, Florida's automatically in, right? So that's one. Clemson's automatically in because they're a one-loss ACC champ. So that's two. And then assuming Ohio State wins the Big Ten, has no problems, that's three. So you're going to have to choose Alabama or Notre Dame. I think it's definitely going to be in that situation because, look, they have a top 10 win over Texas A&M. Georgia isn't top 10 right now, but they're around that area. So they have a top 10 win over them. They just have a better resume overall. If Alabama wins out and is an undefeated SEC champion, is there any chance that they don't get the one seed behind maybe Ohio State or a team like that?
Unless Alabama gets a ton of big injuries and they keep all their games way closer than it should be, Ohio State does not have the schedule to jump us as of right now, and neither does Notre Dame, in my opinion. Because if we win out, we control our own destiny. We'll stay number one. And, okay, I got a question. Do you think a team like Cincinnati, BYU, Marshall, Liberty, Coastal Carolina, do you think any of those teams could have a chance of sneaking into the playoff?
No, I really don't think any of them have a chance. And in a regular year, they don't really have a chance. We saw that with UCF, but especially in a COVID year, you know, without any out of conference games for these teams like Cincinnati or BYU to play, even if it's just like an average Power 5 team like Stanford or something, there's really no measurement to see how the Cincinnati and the teams they've played compare to the rest of the Power 5 conferences. Like, there's no way to compare them. There's no possible way. So I just don't think there's any chance the playoff committee ends up putting a group of five or BYU in the playoffs unless a lot of crazy stuff happens.
Okay, well, with Liberty, here's the dilemma with Liberty. They have, so they're undefeated as of right now. And they've beaten, so they just beat, Syracuse, Power 5 team. They beat Virginia Tech, Power 5 team. And they play NC State, which is also a Power 5 team. And they end the season with Coastal Carolina, that as of right now is a top 15 team in the nation. That would be 3 Power 5 wins, which I know doesn't sound like much, and also beating a top 15 team. And for a team like that, who knows? They could finish top 5 or 6 if they can win out and by a lot. What do you think?
I would have a 2-loss Clemson, 2-loss Notre Dame, 2-loss Florida. Any of them, 2-loss Texas A&M, any of them over a team like that. Unless it's the only two teams that are not Power 5 that have a chance, and even like a small chance, are Cincinnati and BYU.
What if Liberty has a bigger margin of victory than Clemson and Notre Dame against the team that they played? In Clemson's 2-loss and Notre Dame's 2-loss.
I just don't see it. Could you imagine Liberty playing against Alabama right now? What do you think the spread would be? Probably like
40.
At least 30 points.
Crazy.
It would not even be close. There's no chance they do that.
Let's move on to the Pac-12. That's very interesting. Do you think?
Yeah.
So if Oregon goes undefeated, can they make the playoff? And if so, under what circumstances?
So whether it be Oregon or USC, I don't think either of them have a chance. Obviously, they have to go undefeated. If they even lose one game, they're out of it. But even if they go, undefeated, they just don't have any chances to get good wins unless they were to play each other. That would be their only good win in the Pac-12 championship. And I just don't. I mean, look at the Pac-12 right now. There's no outside of USC and Oregon. I don't think there's any ranked teams, and there's definitely not any like really good wins that you could get in there. So I just don't think it's enough. I mean, of course, there's a small chance they would need a lot of help. They would need Notre Dame and Clemson to both somehow finish with 2 losses. They would need Alabama to beat Florida for sure. They would need A&M to lose another game or two.
Well, hold
and
up.
they would.
If Ohio State has so Ohio State only plays what 1 or 2 more games in the Pac-12. Is that correct?
Ohio State?
Yeah, Ohio State. They only play 8 games, right? Pac-12 plays 6.
The Pac-12, I think, plays 7 in total, but the 7th is counting like Pac-12 championship.
Okay, so in my opinion, Ohio State's schedule is very weak. And if you have a undefeated Oregon and a 1-loss Ohio State, and they're both conference championship winners, I might put an Oregon on that one. If they win by good margin, Ohio State has a bad loss. What do you think?
I mean, it all just depends on like what Oregon does. I mean, with their margin of victories and stuff like that. It also depends. Maybe you have a Texas A&M in there too. I mean, like I said, all those things need to happen. I just think there's way too many things that need to go a certain way for Oregon or USC to make the playoffs. I don't see it happening. And also, I'm pretty sure this might not be official, but I heard something about if they even have one game canceled, they're automatically disqualified from the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
And
what do you think about do you consider the Big 12 out of the race as well? Even if Oklahoma State wins out, do you consider them out?
If Oklahoma State wins out and they're a one-loss Big 12 champ, sorry. They have a chance. They're going to need some help as well.
They're going to need help.
I think a one-loss Notre Dame, whose only loss is to Clemson in the conference championship, I think they get in over that team. Because if Notre Dame's only loss ends up going to Clemson, they are 1-1 against Clemson, which means they've shown they can beat Clemson. So I don't know how you can really penalize them for that all that much.
Who was Oklahoma State's loss again?
It was Texas.
If Oklahoma State can avenge their loss, okay. For some reason, the committee loves conference championships. Loves them. They value it so high.
Yeah.
If
unless your name's Alabama.
Yeah. Oklahoma State, if they win out, I think they would get it over Notre Dame, 100%.
Okay, now on to Notre Dame. Bearing no losses in the regular season, if they were just to lose to Clemson in the ACC championship, do they need some kind of help to make the playoffs, or are they just a lock?
I would personally put a 1-loss Florida team into the playoff over them, and I would also put a 1-loss Alabama. Okay, here's the thing. Everyone knows Alabama's most talented team. It's not a question. The committee knows, and even if Alabama has a loss, they know that they're a top 4 team in the nation.
At the moment, I think we're both very confident about Alabama making the playoffs.
I would say teams that are a lock, Alabama. That's it for now. Maybe Ohio.
I think Ohio State's a lock. I don't see them losing anybody.
Yeah, I'd throw in Ohio State as well. So we got 2 locks right now. We got Clemson, Notre Dame. That could go both ways. A&M is in the mix. Oklahoma State, Oregon, and who else? Indiana is undefeated.
Yeah, but Indiana can't be in if Ohio State's in.
Yeah. Oh, true. Could we will. I think this year we will 100% see 2 teams from the same conference.
Definitely. And that's either going to be ACC or SEC. Obviously, SEC, I think it's a little less likely because you need. I mean, I guess there's 3 possible teams, like you said: Florida, Alabama, Texas A&M. We already have Alabama as a lock. The only way Florida can make it is if they end up beating Alabama. Yeah, if they lose, they're out. Texas A&M, they need some help. Under what circumstances can Texas A&M make the playoffs?
Well, first off, they would need Florida to win the rest of their games besides SEC championship, better resume. And then they also need Alabama to win out and beat Florida, because then it's also a much better loss. They would also – okay, so if that happened, Florida's out, Alabama's in, I won. So let's say Ohio State and Clemson. Okay, let's say Notre Dame beats Clemson again, right? Beats Clemson again.
And Clemson's out.
In there. And let's say something happens with Oklahoma State, which I'm guessing will. I think A&M would then get put in there. I think a one-loss A&M would 100% get put in over a two-loss Clemson. Do you not? Do you not think so?
A one-loss Clemson, you said?
No, two-loss Clemson.
Oh, two-loss Clemson,
Those losses to Notre Dame.
Two-loss Clemson is out if they lose to Notre Dame twice.
So they would need the people that are undefeated right now to win out.
I think A&M needs either Clemson or Notre Dame. So if either of them finish with two losses, they need that. Okay, just one of them. They need Florida to be eliminated by Alabama. So I think if you're an A&M fan right now, you are rooting for Alabama, unfortunately, for the rest of the season, until playoff time, of course. But one more thing. How much do you think Texas A&M should really be penalized for that blowout loss to Alabama? Because it was week 2 in a COVID season, and obviously they've been looking a lot better since that game.
Well, here's the thing. So college football playoff, this is from the committee's point of view, they always look at when your loss was in the season. If you look at the conference championship, it is so much worse than losing your second game or first game of the season. But the problem with them is they're not going to have a conference championship to play in. Even if Alabama does trip up, they have to lose twice to either Auburn, LSU, which got canceled, Arkansas, which actually I think will be a good game. I just don't see it happening. Texas A&M has a very – who would make it? Undefeated Oregon or one-loss A&M? I think an undefeated Oregon would. They would have a conference championship.
I'll have to disagree with you on that one. I think A&M gets in over undefeated Oregon. I think the committee values the SEC a lot more than they do, especially the Pac-12, all the other conferences, really. And obviously, we don't know much about this yet, but it depends how much the committee values, not playing as many games. The Pac-12 is going to be, if Oregon ends up winning all their games, that's 7 games compared to A&M's 10. So my question is, why should Texas A&M be penalized for having a harder schedule and playing Alabama? Oregon wouldn't beat Alabama. So why should Texas A&M be penalized for having a harder schedule? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. A&M did win against Florida.
Exactly. If you put Oregon in A&M's schedule, they likely have 2 losses.
Exactly. They're always 5th or 6th in the SEC. They can never get over that hump of LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Bama. But this year, they didn't beat Bama, but they did beat Florida, and that's a huge win for them. And if Texas A&M had a little better schedule and the SEC West wasn't so bad this year, let's say Texas A&M played Georgia and they beat them, then they would be very in the mix for the conversation in the playoff.
Yeah. I think one problem is they have the one win over Florida, but because they don't, or assuming they win out, because they're not going to have any more, really good wins, they don't really have much to say, oh, that Florida game wasn't a fluke. Look, we can beat another elite team. You know what I'm saying? They just don't have a whole lot to show for it. That's why they're going to need a lot of help. Versus the one year when Alabama ended up making it as one loss, they didn't even make it to the SEC championship. They had a few really good wins here and there. Texas A&M has the one over Florida, but not much else besides that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for today. Comment down below your playoff predictions and subscribe as well. Thank you.